Joining me now, Democratic Congressman Robert Garcia of California. He's a member of the House Oversight Committee and the Homeland Security Committee. And Andrew Desiderio, senior congressional reporter at Punchbowl News. Thank you both very much for being here. Congressman Garcia, I have to start with you. How did you vote on each of the bills today?
Yeah, look, this is a good day for the United States, for democracy. It's a great day for our allies across the world and for humanitarian aid. I voted yes on the package. I think what's really important is that at this very moment that Putin is defeated in his march toward trying to dominate Eastern Europe and Ukraine, the House did the right thing. It's also really important that we focus on the humanitarian aid package of $9 billion. And that humanitarian aid is not just going, which is desperate, for places like Gaza. We're talking about money that will also be used in Haiti, which is going through a massive, as we know, just chaos and crisis right now. It's going to go to places like the Sudan, where millions have died since the civil war. And so the humanitarian aid package, I think, is one of the key cornerstones of this entire deal. $9 billion, one of the largest in recent memory. So I'm really proud of that. I think the House did the right thing today. And there's a lot of work ahead, but I'm really glad our allies are going to receive the support that they need.
Let me get you on one more thing, Congressman. Why you voted against the TikTok bill? Why?
I voted against that bill because my position on that has been the same. I think that there are other ways of addressing privacy concerns around social media, and we should treat all these platforms equally. And so that's been my position for a long time. It will continue to be. I think that the House obviously is going to move forward. I hope the Senate puts in the right types of measures and protects the millions of Americans across the country that use TikTok for their small business, to promote their brand, to promote their restaurants. And so I'm just concerned about the impact of the local economy across America, and I'm hopeful the Senate will weigh in and make some of those changes.
So, Andrew, President Biden put out a statement praising both parties for coming together at this inflection point. How much of a role did Biden and his administration have in moving Speaker Johnson from Ukraine aid skeptic to being willing to put his speakership on the line to get the foreign aid package passed with Democratic votes, no less?
It's quite the 180. You know, when Mike Johnson was a rank and file member of the House of Representatives, he consistently voted against aid to Ukraine. He was in that group of Freedom Caucus, Republican Study Committee members who were the ideological far right of that conference. And what he's said since is that he's gotten a lot of intelligence briefings, right? Because when you're the Speaker of the House, you're part of what's called the Gang of Eight, right? You get the highest level intelligence briefings possible. And you know, what has been impressed upon him is sort of the gravity of the situation in Ukraine, and not just what's happening in Ukraine, but what could happen beyond Ukraine if Putin is successful in Ukraine. So clearly his views were changed, were influenced as a result of these briefings. And he's also talked personally about the fact that, you know, his son is about to go to the U.S. Naval Academy. And one of the arguments for sending aid to Ukraine is that I'd rather send American bullets than American boys to Europe to defend against Vladimir Putin. And that's exactly what's happening right now, which is that there are no American boots on the ground. There are no Americans dying in this conflict, and that it's a pay now or pay later type of situation. And I think those arguments really moved him. But it is fascinating to see that he really is truly, as you said, putting his job on the line for this issue after having been someone who voted against it consistently.
Okay, so let's talk about the fact that his job is on the line. Congressman Massey says if the Speaker doesn't resign, there will most likely be a vote on the motion to vacate. He has signed on as a co-sponsor to Marjorie Taylor Greene's motion to vacate that she put out last month. She stormed out of the Capitol after this afternoon's vote. When might she make the move to turn her motion to vacate into a privileged motion requiring immediate action?
So the House is going to be on recess for the next week. And what she said today was that she wants this issue to marinate a little bit and for members to get sort of heat from their constituents back in their districts over what happened today in the House of Representatives. So she's still teasing it. She's still hanging this over Mike Johnson's head. I think a lot of this, frankly, has to do with fundraising. She, you know, by leaving this issue out there and making it something that she can talk about for weeks and weeks and weeks on end, that definitely helps her fundraising numbers and, of course, raise her profile. And she's, she is a powerful member of the House because only of this rule whereby one member can trigger a motion to vacate. So the longer she teases it, the more she's going to get the attention for it. I think that's important here. Right.
And so, Congressman Garcia, the really important question to you is this: will you vote to save the speaker right now? If not, what concessions will you need from him to turn your no into a yes?
The only vote for speaker I'm going to make is for Hakeem Jeffries. And so there's no circumstance where I'm going to support a far right extremist Republican for speaker. Now, I understand that, there might be other considerations that might be made. Other Democrats might feel differently because of the vote. And I understand that. At the end of the day, we are going to get behind our leader. Hakeem Jeffries, I'm sure, is thinking about this question. He is lined up to lead the entire House. That who should be the speaker. It's time, quite frankly, for Mike Johnson just to hand over the gavel to Democrats. I mean, we are the ones that are actually solving the world's problems. We are the ones defending democracy. We are the ones saving the government from a shutdown. And so I think we are leading. We're showing how responsible leadership looks like. And I think that Mike Johnson is going to certainly have some issues in the weeks ahead.
Real quickly, you say that Speaker Johnson should just hand the gavel over to Leader Jeffries. Why do that when y'all are in control of the chamber without even being in the majority?
It sure feels that way sometimes. I mean, there's no question that we have really been, I think, a consequential force, even though we're in the minority this year. And I credit our leadership to that. I credit the president and the president's real bold leadership in leading us as a party. And the Republican Party has been just one big clown show all year. And so it's one crisis to the next, and it's one Marjorie Taylor Greene created crisis to the next. We'll continue to lead. We're ready to get back to work. We have a lot of things that are important to us, and we've got to push through.
Hey everyone, MSNBC has a new and improved app. You'll get real-time alerts and analysis, live blogs, in-depth essays, video highlights, and the best 2024 election coverage. Download the new MSNBC app. Here's how to do it. You tap on the App Store on your phone. You hit search on the bottom right corner. You type in MSNBC. You click on the MSNBC app. You click on Get or the cloud icon and enjoy it.